Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another polymer clay video at my YouTube channel and my blog keepsakecrafts.net. Today I'm going to show you a simple polymer clay technique called caning. You can use this to make this polymer clay flower and make it into any piece of jewelry you like. So to start with, you will need 3 different colors of polymer clay, a dark, a medium, and a light. And you want these to be well conditioned, which means they're mixed up well so that all the plasticizers are mixed evenly throughout. And I'm just going to roughly make these into pieces that are about the same size. There is no precision required for this particular polymer clay technique. So I'll set these leftover pieces aside. We may use those later. And then you just want to overlap the medium over the dark. So about half of it hangs over. And then the light over the medium, same way. So about half of it hangs over. And then you're just going to take your roller and roll that out a bit. Then take your clay blade and cut this in half. So you're cutting through all 3 colors. Scoop up 1/2 and stack it on top. And I'm just going to take a moment here and trim off these ragged edges. Okay. I'm also going to trim the ends a little bit, just so it's all kind of even. And now cut that in half again and stack it on top of each other. You want to keep the dark on top of the dark and the light on top of the light. So now you went from 1 layer to 4 layers. And now you're just going to make this piece of clay wider in the other direction. So I'm going to compress it from dark to light. I'm just going to squeeze it in a bit and then also flatten it a little bit thickness wise. And once you get something going on there, once you get a little bit of movement, you can take your roller and just kind of roll it out a bit. And I definitely want to make this narrower this way and longer that way. But I am going to kind of keep it in a rectangular shape. So there's a few different ways. I've sped this up because this is kind of boring to watch, but this is called reducing a cane. You can take any clay that you like and change the shape, but you're still going to have the same design on the inside. It will have changed shape. And you can do it by rolling with a roller. You can do it by pinching and stretching with your fingers. And also, once you get some movement going, you can actually kind of wiggle it, twist it and wiggle it. Try to keep it all about the same thickness as you go. And now I'm going to cut this into 4ths and stack it on top of each other once again. And if you look at the cross section, you'll see, like I said, you have the same thing on the inside. It hasn't changed except for in the shape. And that's what a cane is. As long as I don't twist this or compress it unevenly, whenever I slice into it, I will have the same thing throughout. So now you have 16 layers, and that's perfect for what we're doing. And so you want to reduce this down until it's about the size of this one. I made another one red and pink until it's about 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch square, and it'll be 5 or 6 inches long. And when you're caning, you will find that the ends always get distorted. That's just the way it is. So I'm going to cut off this end. I think I have it right about where I want it. Because it's so small, it's almost difficult to see all that detail, but it's still in there. Now it's a good idea when you're making polymer clay canes, before you start slicing into it and manipulating it, it's a good idea just to let it rest for a little while to firm up. You don't have to put it in the fridge, although sometimes if it's a really hot, humid day, you might want to do that. But just let it sit for an hour or so. You'll be amazed at how much it's firmed up and is much better to work with for sculpting. So to make your polymer clay pendant, it's really a good idea to decide ahead of time what you want to make with it. So here's a pendant. It's just a little pendant, and I've strung a 1mm leather cord through it. And so you need one stringing hole, and I'll show you how to make that so your pendant will stay oriented properly. Here's another pendant done the same way. You know, you could make these into a bracelet, in which case you would need to make 2 stringing holes. You could make them small and make them into earrings, so you might want a screw bail in there. It's helpful to make those choices before you start making your flowers. And a cool thing you might notice about these 2 flowers is these are both made with this same cane. Just on this side I had the lighter pink side out, and on this one I had the darker, more reddish side out. So you have both those options when you make your piece. So I'm just going to grab a scrap of my light colored clay, because I think I'm going to have the light blue out, and roll it into a ball, and then I'm just going to flatten it out to maybe a little less than 1/8 of an inch thick, and kind of keep it in mostly a circle. And then for the channel for stringing, what you want to do is have it in about the top third of your circle. Your pendant will hang straight up and down and won't be prone to flipping around facing the wrong way as you wear it. Remember, if you're going to do a bracelet, it's a good idea to have 2 stringing channels, keep them parallel, and then you can string beads on each of the other strands, and it would keep your piece lying nice and flat on your wrist. But I'm going to do a pendant, and I'm going to take just a little bit of that clay, same clay that I used for the backing, roll it into a bit of a snake, and just make sure that that wire is fully encased in the clay. Also, make sure the wire you use is thick enough to accommodate whatever you're going to use to string. This is 1.8 millimeter, I think it's 12 or 14 gauge wire, so that will accommodate a 1 millimeter cord. And also make sure it's straight, because you're going to have to pull it out after the piece bakes. Next, what's handy here is a razor blade. Now, can you see how that's squished out of shape? So it really is a good idea to let your cane rest a little longer than I'm going to. I'm going to get around it by constantly flipping it back and forth as I cut. And you want to cut pieces of equal thickness, and it really depends. The bigger the petals you want, the thicker you need to cut your slices. So cut a bunch of slices, and then what I like to do, especially if my cane's been sitting for a while, is I press it between my thumb and my forefinger. That helps warm it up a little bit, so that if it's been sitting for a while, it'll be soft and pliable. Then you're going to pinch together the side that's going on the inside. I'm going to have the light side out, so I'm going to pinch together the dark blue side, and I'm going to use fingers of my other hand to gently thin that edge and pull it out. Now you can shape this. You could shape it into a point. You could make it round. You do whatever you want. And then I'm just going to lay these all around this circle. If you find that it's really sticking to your fingers a lot, you might want to clean off your fingers with a wet wipe. And if you find one that isn't cooperating, just roll it in a ball and put it in your pile of scrap. There's plenty here to make a lot of flowers, so don't spend time fiddling with a piece that isn't cooperating. And that's all there is to it. And now that I've spread it out a little, you can see some of that detail that we put into the cane. It's just so much nicer than using solid color clay. So repeat to place petals all the way around. So now I'm back. I have the outer ring of petals all done. I actually did put my cane in the freezer for about 10 minutes. That helped because it was really squishy. And now, before you start your second ring, you may find that these pinched edges of your clay will kind of get in the way. So just take a ball tool and press them down a little. And then go ahead and add your next row. Now it depends on how big your flowers started out as to just how many rows there are. I do try to cover any of the background so that none shows through. Now if your fingers are suddenly feeling way too big to place your petals, you can use a needle tool. And also notice I have my project on a little 6-inch tile, and that's great because I can turn it around on my work surface. And now I can just pick that up, put it right where I want it. Okay, and last one. And again, just take your ball tool. This helps adhere them to the flower as well as make a little room. Now you can make your center any number of ways that you like. On this one, I added a ball of the lighter clay that I used in the blend. And then I used this tool to just make crisscrossing lines in it all around. And then I surrounded it with little balls of a yellow color that were just kind of textured a little bit with a needle tool. So that's one kind of center. Now this one you could see is a bigger flower, and I ended up doing 3 rows of petals for this one. And then in the center I started out with a ball of this light blue color just to fill it up, and then added in a whole bunch of small balls of the light blue color for the center. So I kind of like that. So I think for this one I'm going to go back to that gold color and just kind of fill in the center. I mean, you could fill the whole thing with little balls, but it's time consuming. So you could even just do this. Take your tool, or you could take your needle tool and add a texture like that, whatever you like. I'm going to just pinch off like the smallest possible ball you can, and then usually that's too big. So when you have a piece that's too big but it's tiny, just roll it into a little bit of a snake, cut it in half, and then see if those resulting balls are small enough. Another way to get little tiny balls that are pretty even is to roll a very small snake and then cut pieces from it. And if your pieces aren't cooperating, again, you can use the needle tool to nudge things into place. And there, so that's all done. And now you can just use your blade to lift it up off the tile. If you bake it directly on the tile, your back will end up shiny. So if you don't mind that, that's fine. But what I like to do is use the blade and lift it up, and then just put this on an index card and bake it for about an hour at the manufacturer's recommended temperature. So here's the flower out of the oven. And in order to remove the wire, all you need to do is grab it with a pair of pliers and give a twist. You kind of hear a little snap as the seal breaks, and then as long as your wire is nice and straight, you can just pull it right out. And then you have a great stringing channel for whatever you want to string it onto. Now some things I used for finishing, just some chain for this necklace and an eye pin, a nice long eye pin, and I slid it through the channel that I made. And then on the other end, it was a little tough, but I managed to make a loop on the other end that's hidden behind the petals and put the chain in that. Also, I decided after baking that I wanted to add some dangles. And what's handy are these little tiny screw eyes. I'll put a link to these in the blog post in the description box below. And I just screwed them in and then pulled them back out and added some super glue and added some wire wrapped crystals. And that makes a really pretty pendant. You could also use these on a piece that didn't have any stringing hole. And just to show you, after you made your pad of clay for your flower to rest on, you can just pop one of these screw eyes in there, and just like we covered up the wire, except we're going to make this permanent, just pop another piece of clay on there, and now you can make your flower into a dangle. Build your flower on that and you're all set. So here's another look at the project we made today. I hope you like this idea and that you'll give some floral sculpting in polymer clay a try. And for links to tools and materials used in this project, click here to go to the accompanying blog post. If you have an idea you'd like me to try, please share it in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Thanks so much for watching Keepsake Crafts videos. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you do for 3 new videos every week. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and on my blog. Happy creating. Bye-bye.